Since Renault returned to Formula One in 2016, it hasn't reached quite the same heights that it did in the early 2000s. Underfunding, massive staff turnover, and a rebrand to Alpine have created lackluster results and questionable moves from management at Renault. All of this leads me to believe that not only will the team eventually be sold, but that I believe that it should be sold. Let's get into my reasons for why I want the Alpine Formula One team to be sold and who are some of the potential buyers going forward. Hello everybody, my name is Michael and welcome back to Last to First. There are several reasons why I want to see the Alpine Formula One team be sold. The first is that I just believe that the staff deserve more. They deserve an ownership team that gives them the resources and ability to compete in F1 without really undermining them. Renault corporate likes to dip their hands into the race team all the time, and we've seen in past history that that's not the best move. The best Formula One teams, the most dominant ones in the past, have been ones that are allowed to just be a race team and not be governed by corporate so much, like we saw with Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. Red Bull as well are both teams that were able to dominate the sport because they were really left to operate like a race team and not like a corporation. We've also seen Renault do these different types of like 5-year plans and other similar time frame related goals, and that never works in Formula One because it's just so complex and the teams are so reliant on the other teams to be not performing as well. So the time frame ones just never really work. They set unrealistic expectations, and when the team doesn't meet their goal by that time, then they just set another goal and the can just keeps getting kicked down the road. In other forms of business, these goals are typically very good and create a positive impact on the businesses going forward, but in Formula One this isn't such a good thing. Continuing on with the theme of the staff, one of the reasons I want the Alpine Formula One team to be sold is because all of the staff turnover has really made talented people look incapable inside of that team. We've seen people like Alan Permane, who is now the Racing Bulls team principal, Otmar Safnauer, Pat Fry, Bruno Famin, and Alain Prost, to name a few people that have been sacked or just made look a fool after Renault's ongoings in Formula One. Of course, they in the form of Renault, fumbled the bag with Alonso and Piastri, which in hindsight wasn't bad for either of those two, of course, especially Piastri, but still, it just shows the not good capabilities of the Renault management at times. Next is the fact that there's only 11 teams in Formula One starting from 2026, of course. We, as in the Formula One community, I think really want to see each of these teams strive for championships and not just be a marketing exercise. To me, even like teams like Haas and Racing Bulls are kind of borderline on that point where they're just there to exist and they're realistically not going to be championship contending teams or cars. They do have the people for it, but they're just limited by different resources. So even those teams I have a hard time dealing with in Formula One, but I think Alpine is an even more exaggeration of that because they should have the resources, they should have the capability to do so, but really it's just a marketing exercise. The upper management at Renault doesn't particularly care, I don't think, what the results are or what happens in Formula One. They just want to badge it with an Alpine tag and try to get the marketing dollars from it. I think it's kind of funny that the purpose of the Alpine F1 team has been to market the Alpine car brand, and I don't think that's been particularly successful because I don't think that many people know about the Alpine car brand, and I don't think the Alpine F1's team performance doesn't necessarily make you want to buy an Alpine car exactly. Between their engines being slow and the car itself just overall being slow, kind of doesn't match, I think while the primary reason for Renault rebranding to Alpine was for that marketing exercise for the Alpine car brand, I think another major reason, and something that they would never admit, of course, is that the rebrand was because Renault was being made to look like a fool in Formula One, and they didn't want to tarnish the Renault car brand by looking so questionable in looking such a mess in Formula One. They didn't want that to affect their main business, which is the road cars, of course. That's all speculation, of course, but I do feel that probably could have gone into it, because Renault certainly has gotten a lot of hate over the years between their engine and their overall car performance. Now, my last reason for thinking the team should be sold is, of course, Flavio Briatore's return. Flavio returning to Formula One at all, since the Crashgate scandal is questionable in and of itself. Flavio returning to the team where he created that scandal is a whole other thing. Yes, it has been several years since that's happened, and there's a lot of different people within that team. It's a very different organization, but the optics of it are just absolutely horrible. Like, did Renault not expect people to not ask questions and not care? It just was one of those mind-bogglingly questionable moves by Renault, and once again, just one of those things that lead everybody to believe that the team is going to be up for sale at some point. So each of those reasons are reasons why I just personally really want to see the team sold. I would love to see it be put into the hands of another owner who will really take care of that team and try to be a successful Formula One team. So who are some of those potential buyers? Well, the first one I think is the most obvious one, and that is High Tech. I thought this was for sure going to happen before Ollie Oakes had resigned as team principal, and before some of the scandals with his brother and everything that's going on with that. But I think it still could happen. There's just still a lot of unknowns with him. Of course, High Tech is in Formula 2 now, and they also put in a bid to join Formula 1 alongside Andretti, but they were denied. So they are very much a organization that wants to be a part of Formula One. So I think it makes a great deal of sense for them to buy out the Alpine team in the future. Next is another car manufacturer that's been kind of poking their head into the Formula One world, kind of trying to get some ideas about Formula One for several years now, and that is Hyundai. Their interest has been around since 2022, since there's been some rumor mills of them inquiring a bit more about Formula One. They've mentioned wanting to be involved in motorsport more, and buying an existing team could be that way, because that would be a much smaller investment than starting up a team from scratch. So there's certainly a real possibility down the line, but depending on how everything lines up, I think they don't want to be a part of Formula One at least for several more years. So it depends on if Renault would want to sell Alpine now, or maybe in 3 or 4 years down the road. Now, going into a few left field possibilities, but I think they are some possibilities nonetheless. The first is Porsche. I think they could be potentially interested in buying it. They very much wanted to be in Formula One, but didn't want to start everything from scratch. And they were supposed to come in alongside Audi, if everyone remembers that. They had a deal pretty much lined up to be a partner with Red Bull, but Red Bull didn't want to quite give them as much control. So rather than starting a team from scratch, Porsche, maybe they could buy an existing team and get in that way. Another left field possibility is F2 contender Prema. I think they could potentially be interested because they have since expanded from F2 to IndyCar, so they could be interested in making that leap at some point. They have had a very successful time in Formula 2, of course, so maybe they want to try their hand at Formula 1 as well. Now, I haven't heard a single rumor about that, but just thinking about it, I think that could be a possibility for them somewhere down the line. Now, lastly, this one is probably the most left field, and it's a reaction to some of the recent stuff going on in Formula One. But what if Christian Horner were to come into the fold and maybe try to buy Alpine and make his own team out of it? I think that would be quite the storyline, but I could see it being a possibility. I can't imagine Christian Horner coming back into Formula One just as a simple team principal or something else. I think he will be back in Formula One, but I know that he's going to want more control over a team than just being the team principal. So having a majority or partial equity stake in the team so he can really make decisions how he wants, I think would be absolutely crucial. So could he join them and just be an equity partner and be the team principal and keep it as Alpine? Or maybe he could even go and mess around and buy the whole team with some other investors. I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility for him to do that. There's been a lot of talk of Amar Safnar saying that he has some other investors that are interested in coming into Formula One. So could he partner up with Christian Horner to buy out the Renault Formula One team? It could be a possibility somewhere down the line. It's going to be really interesting to see how things shake out in the next couple months, couple years, whatever happens. But I think that could be a really interesting outside shot of Christian Horner and then maybe even Otmar Szafnauer teaming up to do that. It's hard to imagine Renault not selling the Formula One team at some point in the future, but who knows? Maybe they will continue on going about however they go about Formula One, and they'll just keep on using it as a marketing exercise. They say they're not for sale, but all the things that they do are pointing to a sale, so who really knows what's going to happen. But all of these moves that Renault have made, between the management changes, Flavio Briatore being brought back into the fold, and of course the cessation of the engine program, really all lead to that one thing, and that is a sale. And for all the stated reasons that I've talked about, I just want it to be sold. I think the people at the team deserve more, Formula One and the other teams deserve more, and I think the fans deserve more.